Okay, so feedback mechanisms. Two different types. You got positive and negative feedback systems. The first being a negative feedback system. What this is any system that's set up to maintain a set point. Okay, a set point could be like a temperature within a room. It could be also a range. Okay, so I know that might be a little confusing, but when we look at like blood glucose levels, there's an acceptable range there. And we're above that range, then certain mechanisms are going to bring us back toward center. If we're below that range, the same thing. Okay, so any homeostatic maintenance mechanism that's going to bring us back toward a central range or a central set point. Okay, and so here are the examples I'm going to try to go through with you guys. Let's get into them specifically. All right, so the first one would be like a room thermostat, and so you can hit these buttons over here and increase the number. But right now we have the thermostat set to 70. So what does that mean? Okay, so the thermostat is wired directly to the furnace's board, and so what's going to happen is if the temperature is below this, there's going to be a call to the furnace. Okay, so if the temperature drops to like 68, what's going to happen is it's going to turn the furnace on. Okay, and that's going to supply heat to the room where the thermostat is, bring it back towards 70. Okay, and so we're bringing it back toward that set point. If the temperature goes above that 70, let's say for whatever reason it gets up to 72, it's really nice outside, the furnace shouldn't be running. It's going to turn off because the signal is going to shut down the furnace, and that's going to allow the temperature in the room to cool off. Okay, or at least for the furnace to be off while the temperature is above, and if it falls below again, it's going to kick right back on. So again, we're going to stay right around that set point of 70 degrees. Okay, the same thing would be true if we looked at this in terms of a graphic representation. So here's my set point right here, and I hope that everybody's going to follow this. So if I'm above 70, 71, 72, eventually that's going to shut the furnace off. It's going to start to cool. If I dip below 70, and so you can see this line is going to kind of follow my set point above and below. Okay, so we can go above, below, but over time we're still focused in on that one central reading. Okay, so same thing is true of a human being in terms of temperature. If we our baseline temperature, our set point internally should be around 98.6. Again, humans vary. Some people's set point is 97, some people's set point 99. We're a little bit warm. that really is irrelevant. Whatever the set point is in terms of a biological system, if we go above that set point, there's going to be physiological mechanisms that should kick in to bring us back toward our set point. In this case, we're going to start to sweat. Maybe we're going to jump in a swimming pool. There's going to be behavioral changes that are going to occur, and eventually we should drop that temperature back down to 98.6. Sometimes you have a fever or something that prevents the decline of the temperature, but for the most part, this is a negative feedback loop. So we have temperature increase, physiological impact, temperature decrease. Okay. Now what happens when our temperature goes too low is we're going to have physiological impacts as well. We're going to start to shiver, shake, got these goosebumps all over the place, and that's going to drive us back toward 98.6. So again, back toward our set point. Anytime we're too cold, and again, you're outside, you're freezing cold, you're hypothermic, your body's going to do its best. If it can't get it back up there, we're in real danger. But for the most part, anytime we're above or below set point, we're going to have physiological mechanisms kick in to bring us back toward our set point, which again in a human being is 98.6. All right, let's look at another example. I want to show you this graph. This is our baseline again. Looks very familiar, I hope, because it's exactly the same graph. We got 98.6, we're too hot, gonna cool off, too cool, gonna warm up, and we're gonna stay right around that set point over time. Okay, so this is a negative feedback system. All right. Blood glucose is one of the more important negative feedback loops to understand in terms of biology. So we have two contradicting hormones here, insulin and glucagon. They both are produced by the pancreas. More importantly is our set point is actually a range here. Okay, so we have the upper level, 140 milligrams for every 100 milliliters or deciliter. Down here we have a lower value for 100 milligrams per deciliter. And so what we're looking at here is that 2 hours after a meal, blood sugar typically in this range. 8 hours after a meal, blood sugar typically at this range. If we're below this, we have low blood sugar. If we're above this, we have high blood sugar. So normal physiologic range in between those two values. And so if we're below that, what's going to happen is the hormone glucagon is going to be secreted, and that is going to boost up the amount of sugar that's in the blood. It's going to cause you to start cleaving glycogen molecules in the liver, muscle, and supply basic sugars, glucose, to the bloodstream. Anywhere in this range, we're fine. Shouldn't have too much physiological action. Once we get above this range, insulin is going to be secreted by the pancreas, and that insulin is going to reduce the overall blood sugar. It's going to cause the cells to start taking up sugars. It's going to increase glycogen deposition, so we're going to start depositing simple sugars in our liver, stacking them up as the animal starch glycogen. We'll also do that in our muscle cells, and anytime we're above this value, insulin should cause that kind of activity within our blood. Anytime we're below this value, glucagon would be released, and that should boost us back up into that middle range. So the idea or the concept here is that we have pretty continuous or pretty stable blood sugar throughout the day, even though we're not eating every 20 minutes or every hour or every 4 hours for that matter. Okay? So the pancreas is the organ that's responsible for the secretion of these two hormones. They're peptide hormones, meaning they're protein based, but right here, you guys, this is where the pancreas is located. The pancreas has specialized cells that produce these hormones. In particular, one type of cells called alpha cells, and these alpha cells produce the hormone glucagon. Again, this is the hormone that's responsible for increasing blood sugar, breaking down glycogen in liver and muscle stores. Okay, over here we have beta cells, and these beta cells are going to be responsible for the production of insulin. I hope at this point everybody understands insulin's activity. Very important peptide hormone. It's going to bond with the cell surface and allow for entry of sugars into the cell. Then at that point we can go through cell respiration, but that is going to lower the sugar content in the blood. Additionally, insulin is going to cause the formation of glycogen. So if blood sugar is high, it's going to allow you to stack up extra sugars in the liver and in the muscle, and also allow you to produce triglycerides for fat storage. So insulin has a wide range of impacts throughout the body, and this is all carried out by the pancreas. Just on a side note, I want everybody to understand the autoimmune disease where these cells are attacked. So you can imagine our own immune system attacking the beta cells within the pancreas. What might that do to the insulin production? That's right, the insulin production would be a lot lower, and because of that, I hope that everybody would understand it would be a lot harder for you to manage blood glucose levels. And if blood glucose levels get too high, people can have a seizure, they can go into shock, they can pass out, they can die. Okay, so pretty serious kind of autoimmune disease there, and that's treated by insulin injection or doses of insulin to increase overall circulation in the body. The next one I want to kind of point out to you guys is, again, a range. You have a range between 10.2 and 8.6 milligrams here for calcitonin and PTH to kick in. This is a system for maintaining blood calcium levels in our body. And, you know, blood calcium, a lot of people might not know too much about this. We store calcium, of course, in our bones, a major reservoir of calcium in our bodies. But we need a constant supply of calcium in our blood. Without calcium, you're not able to contract muscles. It's a very important secondary messenger for a lot of cell communication mechanisms. So, vital part of our blood chemistry. And if it gets too high, calcitonin is going to get released. That calcitonin is going to suppress or push down the amount of calcium that's in the blood. If it gets too low, the parathyroid hormone is going to be released, and that's going to boost it up. Again, the idea is that we stay pretty consistent between upper and lower critical levels, or upper and lower norms. So I hope that makes sense. Another example of a great negative feedback system to make sure you know and understand. Let's look at it a little bit closer. So what's happening here is this case, we have right in the throat, we have a thyroid gland. It has, you know, two distinct halves here. It looks kind of like a butterfly shape, and that's found in this region of your body. That's called the thyroid gland. The thyroid produces a chemical called calcitonin, and what calcitonin, if you recall, does, it drops your blood calcium level. So when calcium's too high in your blood, we're going to deposit a whole bunch of calcium in the bone. Okay. We also are going to try to make sure that there's a lack of uptake by the kidneys and the intestines. So signaling is going to take care of that. So we're going to dump calcium out in the urine. We're going to let calcium to kind of pass through our digestive tract, because again, blood calcium is too high. Okay, but if blood calcium drops below or gets in that low range, what's going to happen is these endocrine glands, they're called the parathyroid. There are 4 of them typically that stud out the thyroid gland, again called the parathyroid gland. They secrete a chemical called parathyroid hormone, and what's going to happen is they're going to actually trigger these osteoclast cells within your bone to like degrade, to chew on the bone and release calcium into the blood. Okay, so that's going to increase blood calcium levels. Additionally, in the kidneys, you're going to have an increased reabsorption, so you're not going to allow the calcium that might potentially go out in the urine to go out. It's going to be reabsorbed and maintained in the bloodstream, so that would increase calcium levels, and you're going to increase absorption in the intestines. So again, all 3 of those mechanisms would be used to increase your blood calcium levels.